Thank you for joining us today for our industry update. As always, please mute your lines during the entire webinar and use the chat feature only, directing it to everyone so we can address your questions at the end. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to John to kick us off.
Thank you, Hope. And as always, thank you, Melissa, for always being so well prepared to provide all this great information. We appreciate that. And thank you to all of you who've tuned in again this week. I would remind you that this webinar is designed for the informational purposes of our hotel, restaurant, and allied partners, as well as our travel and tourism partners. And it's not a press call. It's off the record. We're happy to do any conversations with anyone from the press at our convenience and their convenience, but this is not that time. So if you're with the press, please disconnect now. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Melissa.
Good morning, everyone. I've been asked by no less than 3 people. I did sneak into the office for today's webinar. Please don't turn me in. I had to run up to the Capitol to renew my lobby badge. So we have a little change of scenery. And Hope and Eric are here. So if anything goes off the rails, they're in the office to fix it. Let's jump right into it. And then we do have some announcements going into next week. Today should be a slow update day because nothing bad has happened, which is now good news in our world. We'll start with federal stuff where the COVID-4 package is still being worked on. We don't have a ton of new updates from last week, other than we do know some things that are not going to be included in the package. Generally, what is going to be included, as we've talked about, is allowing that second draw of the P3. We've gotten no further clarifications on what that will look like. It will be specific to businesses with 300 employees or less. For hotels and restaurants that may have more than 1 unit or be part of a franchise, it is done per location. So it is not encompassing all of your locations. So that has not changed, though the threshold is 300 or less on the second draw of the P3 as it's being discussed right now. For my destination marketing organizations, you're still included in being able to finally draw upon the P3. So that's part of it. All of the tax credits I discussed last week continue to be a part of the package. Nothing has changed on that front. We are pretty far apart on a few other things, and I will tell my restaurant friends this. There has been as forceful of a hard no as you can possibly get on any industry specific recovery packages. And that's really specific to Restaurants Act, which is a piece of legislation in the House and Senate that is $120 billion specific for the restaurant industry. Not everybody in the restaurant industry, but most in the restaurant industry. Congress has made it clear, and while we know we are the hardest suffering industry that's out there, if they do something specific for us, then every other industry wants something specific for them. So it looks like this COVID-4 package is absolutely going to be broad, encompassing, helping businesses that actually need it, and not any specific category of businesses. So there is no path forward, as we are hearing, for any restaurant-specific recovery initiatives, such as Restaurants Act, in this package. Beyond that, unemployment continues to be a topic of conversation. Even the Trump administration has said they would like to extend the $600 a week. I'm sure it has nothing to do with re-election coming up, but they do want to extend it at least for the short term, and they are talking about potentially doing it via executive order. I couldn't tell you anymore what is legally done via executive order or not, but there will be an extension of unemployment in some form as part of this next COVID-4 package. Probably $600 be extended for the short term, then a phase down from there, hopefully, as we get to the other side of this virus. There also, for my larger hotels that might not have been able to participate in the P3, there is about, I think, over $100 billion in the Main Street lending program. That's just so complicated that a lot of the really large businesses that have been impacted, our resorts, have not been able to apply. So there is a push as part of this COVID-4 package to lessen some of the requirements to apply for the Main Street lending program to get you some assistance as well. So this next COVID package is really tweaking of what happened in the past, refunding things and allowing second draws for those of you that need it because of the virus. I said last week that they will have it wrapped up by this Friday. I don't see it happening in the next 2 days, but I do see definitely a package coming together. And that, on the plus side, is because of the election in November. You have a lot of people running for re-election, and unemployment is hanging over their heads. Helping their small businesses is hanging over their heads. So I do see a package happening. I do not see it happening within the next 2 days, and they're supposed to be out of session by Friday. So we're going to see how that shakes out. But there will be a package, and it will be somewhere within the parameters that we've discussed here today. And of course, when we get all of the specific details, we will get it out there. I will reiterate what I had said last week. It's all very fluid. So I can't tell you specifics of how the P3 drawdown number 2 is going to look. I can't tell you specifics of changes of how that can be used. I can only tell you that it's being part of a broader package. Further, I do want to just touch upon quickly, for those of you that are looking for your forgiveness of your first P3, that FAQ document for forgiveness has been updated. It will be included in the daily update today. So take a look at that. Not a ton of changes, but Treasury is continuing to tweak that document. And PRLA has signed on to numerous coalition letters asking for forgiveness to be extremely streamlined for those of you that drew down under $150,000 from the P3, recognizing that none of you are the ones who might be not using it properly, and it should be more easily forgiven than maybe somebody who drew down $2, $3, $4, or $5 million. So that's our general federal update for as we know it today. Stay tuned to the daily update, because it's going to occur like it has in the past. When they come to a deal, they're going to move it really quick just to get it across the finish line before anybody changes their mind. They're not in session in Harrisburg this week, so don't ask me why I decided to go up to the Capitol today. I guess I'm just a glutton for punishment. But they will be returning to session. The Senate has indicated that their first week to return will be September 8th. As of right now, the House will return the week after. There is still a chance that they might return to session in August. We are waiting to see how that shakes out, primarily to move some election bills that they would need to move earlier than later if they want them to be in effect for the November election. And there's talk about moving some of those bills as it pertains to mail-in ballots and some of the hiccups I think we had in the primary that they want to get addressed before the November election. And please don't ask me if the Trump administration is going to delay the federal election. They're not. So you can just ignore that. When your own party says that they don't support it, you can take that to the bank. So the election will be in November. But we have been having a number of conversations with legislatures while they have not been in session. And I have our priorities, our PRLA priorities update there. Our whole list of priorities that we have shared in our daily updates. We have had legislators starting to sponsor and draft those pieces of legislation. We are in conversations with leadership to move those pieces of legislation as soon as they return. If they return in August, we're looking to start moving them then. If they don't return until September, we're lining up to start moving those bills in September. And again, I will let you know when we need to activate on that front. I will tell you one of our focuses is House Bill 2513. And that is Representative Garth Everett's bill. It passed the House and would allow restaurants to reopen to 50% capacity. And we are hoping that if the governor does not have a come to Jesus moment before they return to session in September, we want to move those bills immediately and see what type of support we have and take a temperature of where some of our friends on the other side of the aisle, on the Democratic side with the governor, if they're willing to support our industry by putting up a vote for that bill. So that's going to become a good temperature check, I think, for us as we figure out what we're moving forward with in terms of our legislative priorities. So not a huge update there other than this is essentially the sausage making part of me trying to move legislation. So it's a lot of conversations, it's a lot of educating, and it's a lot of getting that leadership support that we need so that when you put pressure on the rank and file members of the legislature, they feel the pressure to vote for those bills. And with that, we're going to go into reopening and mitigation, but I do want to turn it over to John to talk a little bit about our media impressions and social media aspects and some of those recent numbers he's received to give you an idea of where PRLA has been in the media front as it pertains to all of this.
Hey, thanks, Melissa. Just as a reminder, when the governor on July 15th determined that the restaurant occupancy standard should be reduced from 50% to 25%, we took kind of a different tack than we'd been taking thus far with the reopening standards. And again, just as a reminder, throughout this ordeal, really for the last several months, we've worked with the governor's team on the reopening standards. And anytime there's been something that we thought was did not necessarily promote additional safety or could allow restaurants to do business without jeopardizing safety, we worked with the governor's team and were able to get that accomplished. Things like the original 50% guideline was an example of that. Things like bar dividers and seating at bars with proper social distancing. Things like booth dividers. All of these were things that we worked with them on throughout the ordeal. When the 25% came down, that was counter to our suggestions all along and something that we could not work with. So we advised the governor's team at that point in time that we needed to challenge that because we didn't think it made restaurants any safer and that there was no evidence that it would. There still is no evidence that it makes restaurants safer if you're doing social distancing and if you're doing face masking and the other requirements in the orders that have came out previously. So the way that we did it was basically twofold, a little bit more than twofold, but I'll touch on the two ways. One is to convince those folks of the governor's party, the Democrats, as Melissa pointed out earlier, that 50% is the right number because they have, frankly, more sway with the governor than probably the ones on the other side of the aisle. And to help them convince the governor, as we were trying to do, that the 25% number was simply a mistake. We've gotten a lot of support in that regard. Melissa talked about that previously and talked about the possibility there may have to be a vote put up as well. But prior to that, we've had a ton of support. So that's helping. That's definitely working. And the second thing is, and again, we've talked about this in the past, but there is not an option to change the governor's orders through the court system. There is no judicial remedy because this is a state of emergency. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court and ultimately the US Supreme Court, who refused to hear a case, has stood with the governor and his ability to unilaterally manage this state of emergency. So consequently, the second part of the tactic was to try to win in the court of public opinion, which means getting a lot of media coverage, particularly on the concept. It's not the only thing that we need. We know we need to increase the capacity of 25 people for indoor events, and that's very important to much of our industry. But the first thing we needed to do was to increase restaurants back to 50% so that they could at least be sustainable. We were able to come up with some meaningful numbers that got a lot of coverage on what 25% would mean to the restaurant industry as far as permanent closures and employees being laid off. And so consequently, we've had an amazing reach in the media with this message, all positive for the industry. We've had a total of 134 placements in different media outlets, both in Pennsylvania and across the country. We've had an estimated audience reach of over 500 million people. 503 million people have been reached with the message. There's no question the message is getting out that the restaurants are no safer at 25%, but they're at a great risk of going out of business and that we need to return to 50% as soon as possible. That said, we've also continued discussions with the governor's team, both Melissa and I and other members of our board have, and there is a great desire on their part, and there's a lot of talk about getting back to 50%. And so it's definitely an open subject there, as is the subject of increasing indoor capacity. When that will happen, we can't say. We don't know any more than what I've just told you, but I wanted to give you an update on the success of the work we've been doing in the media. And thank you to Melissa and Ben and Steph who are all sharing the media appearances with me because that's a lot to do 134 interviews in a little bit over 2 weeks and reach 503 million people. But we think in the long run it will be successful, and we appreciate the support of all of you in helping us do so. So with that, Melissa, I'll turn it back to you. You may want to bounce back to me for anything else. You're welcome to do that, but now it's all for you.
Okay, let's talk about reopening and mitigation. John did talk about this a little bit. No new news, which means no bad news, which, you know, these days I think, I don't even know. I guess no news is just no news. As John mentioned, I think your outreach that you are doing, especially to all of your elected officials, but especially your Democratic elected officials, is working. They are recognizing the importance of our industry. So if you have not started that outreach, please do so. We have been providing contact information for various counties as people request them. Happy to get those over to anybody who wants it. That's the pressure that I think is really moving the needle in terms of COVID doesn't know what 25% is. It knows social distancing, and that really should be the basis of any mitigation efforts from the governor's office, not a random number like 25%. So we're hoping that things will change on that front. I'm going to say a few things. There are a lot of rumors out there, and I don't want to pat PRLA on the back, but if we have something that you should know about, will know about it. And on July 15th, it was the worst kept secret for me to keep my mouth shut during this webinar. If something is happening and we are aware of it, we are going to let you know. There is no talk of further mitigation, shutting you down completely. There's no talk of that. So if you're hearing that rumor, unless you hear it from Tom Wolf or Rachel Levine directly telling it to your face, please do not pay attention to that. So if there's anything obviously that changes, we will let you know. In terms of compliance, there was an announcement this week that we want to touch upon. I know we've kind of joked that they're doing more compliance and then LCE does thousands of checks and they give a few warnings and now they're starting to give citations. But there was a change this week in terms of the Department of Ag having a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Health. So your ag inspectors are now going to start inspecting and enforcing those provisions that are covered in the health order. So that's your social distancing, that's your masking for your employees, your masking for your guests, ensuring the tables are socially distanced, ensuring that you're not going above and beyond that 25% requirement indoors or the appropriate social distancing, 25 per 1,000 people outdoors, 25 people for private events indoors, 250 outdoors unless you're in Philadelphia or Allegheny County. They are authorized, your ag inspectors are authorized to now cite you. The Department of Ag was kind enough to reach out to Hope yesterday. This is once again not a game of gotcha. This is going to be, if they go in and you are blatantly not following the rules, if you are having a wedding for 150 people indoors, that is going to lead to a citation. But if you have two tables that might not be 6 feet apart and you can change and address that right then and there, that is going to be permissible. So it's going to be similar to all of my liquor licensees who've been going through these checks with LCE. Department of Ag is essentially going to be doing the same thing, but now in addition to their regular inspections, they will be authorized to cite and document if you are not compliant. To that end, LCE doesn't post their inspections publicly until after a process has gone through. Department of Ag posts sooner. So if you are dinged for not being compliant, they will note that on your inspection and it will be posted publicly. Court of public opinion, it seems to be what is drawing compliance right now. So please make sure that you are compliant on those main facets. The other things that you don't need to lose sleep over, the meal stuff, you need to check the meal requirement, but it's really the social distancing, the number of parties and all of that they're going to be checking for. Generally, on the state level, I want to address, I'm going to go through some of these things for state, Allegheny and Philadelphia, of what I'm getting questions on over the last week. The gate of the week is barn gate. We have been getting a lot of questions from many private events who say that they have a barn and the barn has windows, and if they open the windows, can it be considered outdoors? I've also been hearing that there are a number of people who are saying that they've gotten waivers to have events in their open barn. I have not heard of said waivers. If there is a county health department that is issuing waivers, that is not coming from the state. I will also say that there are a number of understandably frustrated brides who are saying that they themselves have gotten specific permission to have their event and exceed the limits for private events. None of that has changed. All of those are still the same. For barns, I can tell you that for it to be considered outdoors, it needs to be open on 3 sides. And I will read it directly again from the guidance because I never like to talk out of turn. Indoor dining is in a fully or largely enclosed 2 walls or more space. On the other hand, outdoor dining occurs in a completely or largely open space, open on 3 sides. If you open a few windows on the side of a barn or 2 sides of a barn and call that 3 sides, I don't think that's going to fly. So please use tents, use spaces that are very much outdoors if you're trying to hit that 250 number to increase your abilities. If you have a local health inspector that is saying that that is permissible, check with them. I can tell you that there are no waivers right now in place for anybody. So at least not on the state level. So don't call me anymore asking me for a waiver from the Department of Health because they're not giving any. It's really going to be the interpretation of the inspector. On the Allegheny County front, the question of the week is the 11 p.m. rule, which actually was a very good question. I even had the health department thinking a little bit about this. 11 p.m. in Allegheny County, as a reminder, you have to stop serving food and beverage for on-premise consumption by 11 p.m. in Allegheny County. That does not mean that if somebody is seated at 10:55, they have until midnight or however long it takes to finish their meal. It means that everybody needs to be out of your facility by 11 p.m. So it's not a last seating time. It is everybody needs to be in an eating and drinking time. So we have been able to confirm that week, that number in Allegheny County just this week. So 11 p.m. is a hard stop for restaurants, hotels, caterers, any type of event where you're serving the public or having a private event. 11 p.m. is your hard stop on that front. Philadelphia, not much of an update there because they're not letting you do anything in Philadelphia. I can tell you a few updates on that front. They're cracking down on beer gardens. There's a big concern in Philadelphia just by the nature of beer gardens. I think I touched upon this last week, that beer gardens inherently have people standing and moving around, and that seems to be a concern in Philadelphia. So if you have a beer garden, please make sure you're following the 50-person limit, or you've gotten a waiver in Philadelphia to allow for more than 50 people for outdoor seating in Philadelphia, especially if you have a beer garden. Further, this has been brought up a few times. I know I touched upon it last week. I'm going to hit it one more time. In Philadelphia, if you have what I like to call the COVID-related extension of premise or COVID-related sidewalk cafe, you were able to get it because of COVID, part of the law that was passed in June. Your closing time is 10 p.m. That's when you need to stop serving. If you had a pre-existing sidewalk cafe or you have an outdoor dining component of which you have been open till midnight or 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock normally, that is still permitted. The 10 o'clock closing in Philadelphia is just for those licensed sidewalk cafes or anything that was licensed specifically as part of the COVID discussion. I will say that it was brought up in a press conference yesterday about potentially extending that 10 p.m. rule to a later time. The city said they would think about it. I think with the number of neighborhoods you have in the city, I don't know if you're going to see that number move, but I will say that the city has been working hard to try and get us to a place where we can reopen. And as a reminder, there will be no indoor dining until September 1 in Philadelphia. Commissioner Farley has said that he will announce if that is going to happen by August 21st. So we will know our fate by August 21st, and we are all hoping that it is a change of fate from where we've been since the middle of March. PRLA petition, I just naturally assume that Ben or Steph have put this up. Please continue circulating this petition. There are a few other petitions that are circulating, but ours is up to over 17,000 signatures. We do have legislators now sharing it. We need these numbers to move the needle for specific legislators. So it's really important that we show the broad support we have, not only from all of you, your employees, but also from your guests, to let our legislative body know that this is important and they need to let us reopen 50%. And this is not going to be, step one is to get us back open. Step two is to get all of these recovery package items that we need at the state level. So this petition is not just for 50%, this petition is long-term as well. So please don't stop sharing it. If you have not shared it, please consider sharing it on your social media and your newsletters. The numbers are increasing. They're still increasing quite dramatically, so I'm not shutting down the survey or the petition yet, but we do need your help on that front. Few public event updates. There's like the good and like the frustrating updates. I get everybody's frustration. And I know everybody wants to reopen. And I know that there are a lot of different groups right now that are forming. Many of them are working with the PRLA. A lot of them are expressing frustration all over the state. I will tell you this, if you are part of an organization that is saying they're going to reopen, or you're going to go back to 100%, screw the governor, we need to operate, which I totally understand. And I've said this before, I'm going to say it again, we can't help you. If Department of Health comes in and shuts you down because you are going to open 100% and not follow the rules, I can't do anything there. So if you do it, don't come back to me and ask for assistance, because there's nothing that John or I can do. I will say this sucks. We know you're suffering. We are continuing to bang the drum. As John said, the media is not always as good to us as we want them to be. They have been awesome in getting our story out there. All of you have been awesome in terms of communicating your story. But the focus here needs to be getting legislative support, saying that we're not the bad guys. We're still following the rules, even though they're BS at 25% and no bar service. But if we go down a path of saying we're just going to do what we want, we are going to hurt everybody else that's doing the right thing. So I urge you to continue to be compliant, and we will get everything we can to you in terms of financial relief to get you through this. On another side of it, we are looking in terms of, and I mentioned this, Garth Everett bill, House Bill 2513, and potentially moving some legislation at the state level. Finally doing that state rally that you have all been asking me about on the Capitol steps, and inviting the industry to come to Harrisburg when the legislature is in session so they can actually see the force of our industry. So that is something that we're looking at probably in September when they return to session. I have a call after this webinar to try and figure out when some bills are moving, because I would like to align any action on our part to bills moving or an announcement from the legislature. So please stay tuned for that. So I'll say it again, there's good things that you can be doing to help us and draw attention and get us reopening. We aren't helping anybody if we just say we're going to do what we want and dare people to shut us down. So I'd urge you to rethink that if that's a path that you're looking to go down individually. I think we can go here to enforcement. These are your handy dandy enforcement links that we put up every week. State, of course, is there. Department of Health is there. BLCE. We will check and see if Ag has a complaint form. I think Ag is going to be more of their general inspections, but we also have Philadelphia and Allegheny County on there as well. And I think with that, before I go to the land of questions, we are going to go through some stuff from Hope or John or both.
Melissa, I'll let Hope do this part, and then I'll answer the one question on the Southwest Pennsylvania group that John Graff asked while you're checking the other questions out. So Hope, you want to cover these things?
Sure. You know, we put this up the last few weeks, but this is just to reiterate the programs on a national level that you can be participating with in conjunction with the PA Restaurant Promise and PA Hotel Promise. These have training, they're nationally recognized programs, and they have training components that can help enhance your cleaning and your food safety levels. They do have marketing packages where you can be, marketing kits where you can be putting out additional signage so that customers feel comfortable coming into your establishments. Again, ServSafe Manager certification is important. They will be out doing inspections and looking for you to be complying with that piece of the requirement. We are having classes. Our schedule is up on our website under the calendar of events. And classes you can take online, or you can do half day with exam. And there is now remote proctoring that's available too. So if you have any questions on that, please reach out to me at the office and I can walk you through that process. And we do have some upcoming webinars, and we are finally have a de-escalation training webinar coming up next week, but I'll touch on what's happening today and tomorrow. And then we do have all these links up on our website under our webinar. There's a great HLA forum series going on. Nancy Pelosi will be on there with other individuals, so please check that out. Tomorrow, we have a great webinar coming up with Greg Peters. He's going to be talking about how to stay connected with your networks during this remote status. So I think it's a great one for you to check out and, you know, just see how you can keep connected with your customers and keep making sure that you're talking with your networks that help you keep your business going. John will be taking over Melissa's duties next week and doing our industry update. So please be kind to him next Wednesday. And then we do have a de-escalation training webinar scheduled for next Thursday. We have put a section up on our website with free resources, free presentations, free training for de-escalating training that you can use to have your employees take so that they also are involved. So please get your employees on the webinar next week, but please look at those resources so that you can incorporate that into your training with your staff. And with that, I think we're going to questions, but Melissa, one question that I had in my head with Allegheny County and the 11 p.m. hard stop, is that for takeout too?
No, you can continue to do takeout after 11 p.m. It's just the on-premise consumption of food and beverage must stop at 11 p.m.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Hope. And for all of you who tune in each week just to see Melissa, which is probably the majority of you, thanks for the warning next week, Melissa, that you all can do something else, go play golf or whatever you want to do, since you won't be here next week. But anyway, I'll take this one question because it's because I've been more engaged on this, Melissa, and then I'll turn it over to you. And I could also do the CMBS one if you want me to. But the question comes from John Graff, and it says there appears to be a group of Western Pennsylvania operators getting together in Pittsburgh tomorrow morning. Not sure what their agenda is. You seem to be addressing this right now. That's what Melissa was talking about. There are many groups around the state. Some we've been working very closely with. The Bucksmont group, in fact, one of the leaders of that group testified with us at the House Majority Policy Committee hearing 10 days ago. This particular group is the one that you might have read about in the press that gave an ultimatum to the governor. And I'm quoting what the press reports say. And I think that's accurate from what I've heard. And essentially they were part of a few letters that were sent to the governor, also trying to do the same thing we're doing to restore to 50% occupancy for, at least 50% occupancy for restaurants. And then they supposedly, and I didn't actually see the ultimatum, gave an ultimatum to the governor that they wanted a response by 8 a.m. tomorrow. They've scheduled a meeting for 9 a.m. tomorrow, and they, according to the press article, have threatened to take action such as potentially opening back up if the governor doesn't respond by 8 a.m. There's two things here. One is that we only endorse obeying the law. And the law is what the governor says at this point in time. He has the total authority, according to the courts, to and the legislature, to be able to manage this crisis. So that would be against the law. And secondly, and probably equally important to all of you, we work really hard to try to determine the best path to get to success, the best path to get standards that are safe and yet workable for restaurants. That's why we've worked so closely with the governor's team up until the July 15th order. And then we determined the best path from this point on is continue discussions with him and then try to win in the court of public opinion. We don't believe that threats are the best path to get the governor to respond to this. And so consequently, no, we're not working with this group. There are some PRLA leaders that are attending the group's meetings. I should say PRLA past leaders, because obviously anybody can do that. And we're not and again, we're not saying that this is a bad group. We're just saying their techniques are different than our techniques would be. And I will say that the leader of the group called me last week and asked me my opinion on this. I told him exactly what I'm telling you now. And at that time, they made a decision to try to not do anything drastic, at least at that point in time. I don't know what's going to happen this week, but all we want to do is get success. I don't think this is the way to get success. And I think, in fact, it could stall our efforts a bit. That said, that's the answer to your question, John. As open and honest as I can be about it. Everybody's desperate. Everybody's trying to survive. When you're trying to survive, you do things you might not normally do. Otherwise, we understand that. Don't think it's the best path to success. Do you want me to do the CMBS update too, Melissa, or do you want to do that?
Sure, John, if you know the answer.
I happen to have it right in front of me, so it's easy.
There you go.
You talked about the HOPES Act, John Delosier, and that does have some progress. And in addition to that, Senate Banking Committee Chairman, this is the U.S. Senate, Mike Crapo, sent a letter to Steve Mnuchin this week about the CMBS and about the Main Street Lending Program. So according to Chip Rogers, as recently as Monday evening, and Chip, of course, is my counterpart at the AHLA, he said that this letter, in addition to the introduction of the HOPES Act last week, is significant progress on this critical issue as it clearly outlines the congressional intent of the Main Street Lending Program to the Treasury and the Fed, and also included in the HOPES Act, as you correctly described, is the CMBS issue, which is the commercial mortgage-backed securities that a lot of hotels are tied into and are not getting any relief from. So I think that's the best we can do on that, unless you've heard something more since Monday night, Melissa.
No, just that it should be part of the package, at least in terms of giving relief on the CMBS front. So that should be included in part of the next COVID package. So yes, we aren't sure how it's going to look, but it is expected to be included. And before I get the question of people wanting to know if I've lost my mind and I'm just running away, next week I am going on vacation. So I will be putting up an out of office. So if you need me, make it super extraordinary. And I will be back, and I promise that once I take some time to be a vegetable on the beach and chase my nieces around, I will come back better than ever and with more energy than ever, which is kind of terrifying to think about. So that is where I will be next week, and I'm sure John will do his utmost try to be snarky as possible for next week's webinar. So
doesn't come easy for me, Melissa, but we always say when people go on vacation, they've earned a vacation. There were never truer words than Melissa's vacation. She has earned this vacation 10 times over. And I would like to personally do everything I can to keep her insulated from all of these problems next week. So truly, if you were going to reach out to Melissa next week, reach out to me. I'll figure out a way to get to you. As Ben likes to say, if you want nice answers, go to Ben. If you want professional ones, go to John. And if you want correct ones, go to Melissa. So we'll do our best to try to make them professional and correct next week too. Have fun, Melissa. Back to you.
I will. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's get to some questions. Regarding delinquent Philadelphia liquor taxes, any update on PRLA efforts to work your magic in the direction of gentle payment deals? Gentle meaning no interest or penalties for those of us who are barely hanging on in Philadelphia but due a liquor tax. Asking because Philadelphia is starting to mail out letters regarding delinquencies. Thanks for all you do. Yes, and I'm hoping the pressure will come from something that we're equally trying to do at the state level regarding state sales tax. So my hope in Philadelphia, right now council is not in session. So the pressure that I need on revenue right now, I'm not getting what I need there. But the hope is to delay, give you until the end of this year, December 31st, to catch up on your liquor taxes, and there will be no penalties or fees assessed to that. So City Council is not opposed to it. They're not going to give us a buy. Neither is the state as it pertains to sales tax. But I think they recognize the need, especially since March, for us to be able to play catch up on those payments that we haven't been able to make. So that is a priority. Those are our conversations we're having. I can tell you that on the liquor tax front in Philadelphia, that's probably rising to become my #1 priority in terms of efforts in Philadelphia. So stay tuned on that. It's out there. Philadelphia is responding appropriately, I mean, in the way that they are also looking at deficits and they need every bit of money that they can get. But if you can't pay your taxes and you get shut down because of that, then Philadelphia lost even more money. And that's a conversation that we're hoping to have with revenue, with council and with the mayor. And then John Longstreet answered the CMBS one. Are the P3 idle grants tax exempt? So this is, we did a call to action this week. I think it was in Monday's updates. The P3 specifically is not tax exempt. You do have to pay taxes on some of those investments or things that you're spending the P3 on. It's a technical glitch. Some of my restaurant friends are going to get the shakes because it's going to remind you of 15-year depreciation when then there was that mistake in the tax bill and it was just a mistake, but it took us how many years to fix it? This was a mistake as it pertains to the P3 to allow you to deduct any of your investments that you would have deducted before. Currently, the P3 says there can be no tax deductions for anything you use the P3 for. That needs to be fixed in this COVID-4 package. So please, if you have not clicked on that call to action from Monday that was in the daily update, please do so. That is one of the top priorities. That's an NRA, H&LA, US travel priority across the board in terms of that. So idle grants, I am not sure. Idle grants, I'd have to double check and see if they are tax exempt. So we can check on that, but I know P3 are not, and that is a fix we're looking to do. And then Brett says, I need an office as large as John's. I'm just angled differently, but John does have a really nice office, doesn't he? So, but I'm on the third floor, which we call the penthouse. So I'm in the penthouse, John's stuck on the second floor. So I do have that, I have the better view. For us smaller restaurants, whether 25 or 50%, we can't do 6 feet of social distancing. We have 17 tables in our dining room. We were hurt more by the not to be permitted to have a drink with our takeout on our patio and tent areas. What can I do to help these new outdoor restrictions before July 15th? Customers could enjoy a margarita while waiting for their takeout or enjoy with takeout on our patio. Sorry, it was not poorly written, I understand. We want to be able to let patrons enjoy a drink with their takeout outside on our patio. Wendy, if your patio is not licensed under the liquor code, if you didn't extend your license, that is considered takeout. They can still eat their takeout and have their takeout beverages at your outdoor patio. It only triggers if you extended your license so you could do outdoor table seating out there. So in terms of an unlicensed premise, nothing is stopping any of you from allowing people to get a takeout beverage. It has to be in a sealed container, put a piece of tape over the straw hole, but they don't even have to order food if they're just taking a drink and taking it to an unlicensed portion of your property. So I'm not sure if that helps. It's only the licensed portion that triggers the meal requirement. And we've seen actually a few of our breweries and wineries get creative in this space where they say, take your 6-pack of beer, your bottle of wine, and go over to the field over there and drink it there because that's unlicensed and therefore doesn't trigger the food requirement. So there's nothing stopping individual decisions to consume food at an unlicensed portion of your property. And I think Michael Leifer, I think those links were shared. And that's the thing too. You guys are all doing the right thing and it's hard and you're losing money right now. But if we do go rogue, we've seen this governor, punish people before when they do things that he doesn't approve of. So I'd urge you to keep on following the line and turning in those restaurants that are not compliant. And I'll tell you this, I had a member last week didn't want to reach out to the LCE directly because it required him to give his name. He sent me the information and I sent it to the LCE. So if you have somebody that's not being compliant or you think they're not being, checked on like they should be, send me their information. I will send it to the proper department that should be looking into that. The most difficult restriction punishing operators in Allegheny County is only 50 people permissible outdoors. Across the state, we're at 250. With Allegheny County numbers dropping, is there any discussion to increase the number of people permitted outdoors in Allegheny County? I would, John, I'm not sure. I think you've had more recent discussions with Allegheny County than I have. I don't know if you've seen the needle move on that at all.
No, there's nothing on that. I will say that I really believe that the county would like to get back to the state standards. And we are working at the state level on trying to get the gathering number for increased gatherings increased, as I think we mentioned earlier, either on this call or maybe the call was on just before this, I don't remember. But we are working on that too. But nothing to report on Allegheny County.
I think if numbers go down, we should have today's numbers out shortly. Sunday, Monday, and yesterday we're lower. We're below 1,000 again. And I think I've said before, 1,000 is where I start getting heart palpitations. And you can see that I'm very popular today. My office phone is ringing off the hook. But I think if those numbers go down, we're going to see that. We're going to see some changes. I think, like I said, the pressure is there. There's a desire to change it, but we have to keep on doing the right thing or it's not going to get us anywhere. Well, that de-escalation training, I think that was answered. Yes, all of our webinars, as always, are available after the fact for you to share. And when do we expect Allegheny County to make the next wave of changes to the guidelines? Allegheny County does their press conference every Wednesday at 4 o'clock, unless it's something extraordinary. I don't expect an announcement this week, but I think the numbers are really going to be driving all of that. Can I bring a small wedding party inside for ceremony, processional preparation if I'm not giving them any food or beverage? Zachary, I'm not sure where you're located. If you're in 66 counties, yes, they have to be less than 25 people. The 25 people indoors is not tied to food or beverage. That's universal. Even if I have friends over to my house and have a PRLA happy hour and I don't give them food and beverage, which would be a terrible happy hour, there has to be less than 25 people. If in Philadelphia, also, if there's no food or beverage, it would be 25 people in Philadelphia as well. So, but 25 is your number, not connected to food or beverage. We fortunately do not have anyone. Good. I like how things like that start. However, if we did have a person who comes into work, presents with a fever, we obviously would send that employee home and have them go get tested. People in our area can't get scheduled for several days, what should be done in the meantime. If you have an employee that is symptomatic, so they either tested positive or they're symptomatic, and a fever is symptomatic, you need to treat it like they do have COVID. So once you send them home, you need to, at that point, do a cleaning of the restaurant. You then need to start temperature checking the other employees for 14 days or until that employee comes back with a negative test. So that everything, if they're not symptomatic, if they come in and say, my mom tested positive a few days ago, but they're not showing symptoms, that doesn't trigger all the things that you need to do. But if an employee is showing symptoms, that triggers the things under the Department of Health that you need to do, whether they come back negative or not. If they come back negative 4 days later, you don't have to temperature check your employees anymore, but you will have had to do that deep clean initially when they come in and are symptomatic. Steph shared some great information from the Maine Hospitality Association. If we were to host a training seminar, would we still be limited to 25 people since it would be for educational purposes? Would we be able to provide bagged lunches to them? Would that make it to be not strictly an educational gathering? I think I touched upon this before. 25 is not connected to food or beverage. 25 is just a gathering. 25 is sitting down by the river with some friends. 25, it's not, there's everything you have to do if you're a restaurant or you're serving food or beverage. And then there's everything that the general public needs to do. General public needs to work from home if they're able. General public can't congregate inside for more than 25 people. So the to-go food or any of that doesn't matter. 25 is still your rule of thumb no matter what for indoor, anything, educational, work meetings, anything like that. Thank you for the enjoying of the vacation. And for those of you that are wondering, because I know Lisa Rager asked me the other day, Macy, of course, the dog is still going too, because I can't go on vacation unless Macy's there. So if you requested the emergency outside seating from PLCB, can people sit there and eat, or is it takeout only? If you extended your premise via the LCB to extend your premise, that means that you plan to offer service at those tables. So it's now part of your licensed premise. It's now part of the restrictions that are part of the mitigation effort. So that is if it's outside, it's 25 per 1,000 social distancing. Alcohol needs to be served with a meal. If you have extended your premise, if you just have picnic tables outside and you haven't extended your premise and you're using it as takeout, which means you're not offering service or anything like that, then those mitigation efforts don't apply. It's only for the areas that you have licensed. So if you do have it licensed and people are getting takeout, they can sit there, but they can't take out alcohol and sit there without getting a meal because it's on your licensed premises. You guys are really making me think today. I hope that makes sense. So if it's licensed, you're subject to the mitigation and everything that includes. If it's not, then you're not subject to all of that. Hotel room service can go past 11 p.m. Right, correct. I will say this again because it's like the only happy news in all of this. Hotel room service is considered takeout, so it's not subject to all of the other mitigation efforts that are applied for on-premise service. And Jim, it was good to see you last week in Drexel Book. I hope the zoo is okay. I saw some videos of the zoo, so you'll have to keep me in the loop of how Elmwood Park is doing. And then Zachary, I think I did cover that. If you're not serving food or beverage, you can have up to 25 people inside. Cannot offer any service of food or beverage at all. Any guidance on mesh tent walls? I got this question last week, and it might have been from you, Phyllis. I think I mentioned this last week. It's kind of like, do you want me to get an answer yes or no, or do you want me to just tell you what I think you should do and you're probably going to be okay? I would say mesh, and John can jump in here if he has another opinion, is allowing airflow. So, and that's the purpose of outdoor tents. And even with tents, it says that you should try to keep the sides open. You're not required to. So I would say in this scenario, mesh to keep the mosquitoes out and the lantern flies out would be permissible and would still allow it to be considered outdoors. John, do you have anything else to add?
I agree 100%. And particularly when you made the comment about it says you should try to keep the sides up. If you're putting mesh in, it's going to show great intent to have airflow and do the right thing. And a lot of the inspectors are looking for intent to do the right thing too. So I think it'd be fine. And I would not go back to the governor's team to ask that specific question.
Okay. Are universities and schools exempt from the 25-person inside rule because it's education? Yes. Schools are exempt. They are still subject to the 6-foot social distancing and what they can there, but there is an exemption for universities and schools as it pertains to the 25-person rule. What about higher education wanting to use tents as their dining halls in Philadelphia? I think that is also in the mitigation FAQ and is also permitted. There is, as long as there's social distancing, they are allowing more than 25 people to be using tents as their dining halls, and even within their dining halls to have more than 25 people. There is kind of a blanket exemption for higher education. Before I get the question, that does not mean that you can move your wedding to the University of Pennsylvania or to Norristown High School and therefore not have to meet the standards. So don't ask me that question. It's specific for education. And John's laughing because we both know I was going to get that question. So it is specific to education as well. And I'm glad the Elmwood Park Zoo will get back on track because, as I told Jim last week, I went there all the time when I was a little girl. So, and I think we are nearing, and you guys gave me 6 extra minutes, it looks like. Oh, let's see. Outdoor stadiums like football, it is limited to 250. Yes, unless you're in Philadelphia, because then you're in a super gray area of if you can have any type of events. And it also depends on the sporting event. A lot of large sporting events need specific approval. So I can't give you a blanket yes. I can say an outdoor event is 250, but for some sporting events, the health department is engaged in terms of giving approval on that front. Generally, yes, 250. Philadelphia is saying no events. Then as you know, Philadelphia Eagles fans erupted. So now they're waffling a little bit in Philadelphia. So please, you would need to double check on that in terms of specific sports events. I'm going to show all of these. Hope you have a good vacation to my family and tell them that they need to leave me alone and let me be a vegetable all week. So thank you all for this. Allegheny County is 50 people. So no, the 50 people outdoors is Allegheny County's numbers. 250 if you are in 65 other counties, except for Allegheny County and Philadelphia. We only just had statewide rules. We would shave like 20 minutes off of this webinar. So Allegheny County, Jeannie, I'm sorry, is 50 as of today until they change it. The rest of the state is 250 for outdoors. And I know there's a lot of drama right now because for some of the high school sports, parents can't watch the games. That's a rabbit hole that's not under PRLA's umbrella, thank goodness. And I think, well, there are specific exemptions for education and things like that. So I can't speak to UPIT or anything that they're doing. That's unless they're serving food and beverage and having weddings, I'm staying out of that one. And I think I'm gonna jinx it again. I think we are at the end of the webinar.
Thanks, Melissa. Great job as always.
I will see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you everybody for joining us. We will have this recording up and we'll send it out to you a little later on today. And enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe.
Thank you, Hope. Bye, everyone.